I don't feel like we're here to live life like the way we're told we have to or we're supposed to. I'm like, there's like 8 billion, I don't know how many people there are in the world now, but I'm like, there's like billions of people in the world now. There's no way we're all meant to be here to do things one way.
Hey there, it's Jules. Welcome to Jules Unscripted, Living Life Without a Script podcast, where we chat about the beauty of aging, learning what authentic means to you, and how to build your dream life one step at a time. Get ready to hear stories from incredible people who learned what it takes to build nothing out of something. Here we go.
Welcome to Jules Unscripted. I'm Jules, and today I have RONNI Hill with me on the podcast. RONNI and I have been friends since 2020 when we both kind of started doing podcast management under Lauren Wrighton's podcast manager program. That's how we met. And we just somehow clicked, and we've been clicking for 5 years now. And I know 5 years is crazy. I was thinking about it, I'm like, wow, it's really been that long.
Right.
And it's been great because we've been helping each other through like business struggles, client struggles. We would like help each other with episodes if we need, like, hey, can you edit this real quick kind of thing. And we just kind of been in the same podcasting industry for quite a while now. And so I'm really excited that RONNI is on the podcast for the first time to talk about her podcasting journey and her podcast, A Life Differently, and her new coaching business as well too that she has. And so I'm excited to really sit down with you, RONNI, and talk about your journey and talk about how it took you from being like a VA to podcast manager to what you're doing now, and just kind of the realizations and kind of the aha moments that you had, and just learning more about what you're doing now. And so again, thank you so much for coming on, for being here with me today, and for being a good friend for the past 5 years.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I appreciate that so much. Thank you so much too for actually recapping how long we've known each other because I promise you, like, time is literally just a concept to me. I'm like, I have no idea. But thank you. I'm so excited to be here and I'm so excited to get to be a part of like your podcast rebrand and relaunch. So happy.
Yes. Thank you. And also, too, for those that don't know, RONNI helped me with the cover art for guests. So when you see the guest cover arts come up, RONNI did that. And I just want to say thank you so much again for coming up with that and for helping me with the graphics on that because they look amazing. Like, I can't take all the credit.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for letting me do that. Like, yeah, I know I was trying to kind of give you tips, but I'm like, I really cannot verbalize it. I'm like, just let me like mess around with it.
Of course. And again, thank you. Like, you're saying that, you're not the best with graphics, but I'm like, girl, your graphics are really good. So I trusted you with like giving you that like link, like, can you help me please? Like, it came out to be perfect. So I
Thank
really do
you.
appreciate that. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I want to start with like how you got into doing all the online work. So did you start as a podcast manager? Was that your first introduction, or did you do like the virtual assistant side of things? What got you into doing online work, and what got you into podcasting, and how do you find that type of
Oh,
work? Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So one thing about me is that I am definitely a jack of all trades, always have been. And okay, the actual story of how I got into it, I moved to a new city and I became office manager and I worked at a wedding company. So all of my titles I've ever had have always been like blank and blank. Like I've always had like multiple job titles, literally. So I was an office manager and I was also, what else was I? I was an office manager for two wedding businesses that this couple owned. So I managed like their on-site office. It's kind of hard to describe, but it was basically like a one-stop shop to help wedding couples plan their wedding. So like they came and we had all these different vendors, caterers, DJs, all of this stuff. So I managed that. I also managed their wedding photography business. So I managed the schedules for all of the photographers. I helped like book the photography packages for couples. I did a lot of stuff basically. So I did like blog writing, social media, literally everything. So doing that job, I worked with a lot of like small business owners and it kind of showed me that, one, I can have a small business too. And two, I can do all the stuff that I'm doing here for all these other businesses. So that kind of led me into figuring out how to work from home. And I actually was already interested in working from home. I just kind of hadn't figured it out yet. And I came across a virtual assistant training by Abby Ashley. I think she does the virtual savvy. I can't remember the exact name, but I basically was like, this is what I want to do. This is probably going to help me. And I was like, I already have all the skills. I just don't know how to do this, like working from home or working remotely type of thing. So, anyways, I invested in her program, and something like that is really helpful for me because being somebody who has like a shit ton of skills, it's like sometimes I need someone to like turn me around and be like, look, Ronnie, this is what you're doing. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. That is what I'm doing. But the program basically taught me how to structure my own business, how to become a virtual assistant, all of the things that I could do, how to package it, how to also not do everything that I was doing, which that took a little while. But anyway, so long story short, basically, I think about after a year and a half of working for this couple, I decided to leave and, just do my own virtual assistant work. And I, thankfully enough, actually had a lot of people interested because I work with all of these small business owners. So I ended up doing a lot of work with local people. And I started off doing general VA work, a lot of different things for different people. And I also started specializing in social media management. So that ended up being kind of like my big thing that I was offering and the thing that I became known for. And with the wedding professionals I work with, that was like the main thing that they needed. They were like, a lot of them are older. They're like, we're not tech savvy. Everybody's on social media. And I'm like, yes, we are. So we need to like get this out there. So that became the big thing that I did. And not only being a jack of all trades, I am also very much into human design, which has helped me a lot. And my human design type is manifesting generator, which essentially means the same thing. You're a jack of all trades. But the other thing I learned is how my energy works. And if I'm excited about something, I can keep going. But once I'm no longer excited, I got to switch gears. And that became like a really hard thing to learn and accept. But once I did, it helped me so much. So, what that means or meant was that I did social media management until it didn't light me up anymore. And then I transitioned. And then I actually transitioned into Facebook ads management, which is kind of like a higher tier version of social media management. And then from there, I actually transitioned into podcast management, but it wasn't intentional. It wasn't like a super intentional change. I was working for one of my clients was Melissa Griffin. Melissa Griffin is, I was trying to think of the name of her company, but it was actually Melissa Griffin. It was self-named. She was one of my favorite like blogger people. Like she was really huge in the marketing world. And when she reached out to me to be her social media manager, I was like, who's catfishing me? Like, leave me the hell alone. There's no way. But it was real. Like she really was reaching out to me. So I during all of that transition became her social media manager and transitioned as well in there. So I was also her content manager, and then I eventually became her podcast manager, which is what introduced me to the world of podcasting, and I loved it. Like I was like, "Holy cow, this is amazing." I don't know if I was listening to podcasts before then, but I was obsessed. And I was always working with coaches. So then I started really listening to podcasts that were hosted by coaches. And then I was like, I think I want to actually do this. And ultimately, what really led me to Lauren's program that we both met in was that I actually got let go from Melissa's team. Nothing negative. I had to tell myself that for the longest that it wasn't you. Melissa actually retired from her business. One of the things I love about her is that she was always very intentional about what she did. So she retired, let us all go in the best way possible. And I was like, what am I going to do now? But then I was like, you know what? I love podcasting. I already did VA and social media management work. I'm pretty sure podcast management is something that I can do as well. And that's how I found Lauren's course. And that pretty much took me down that route all over again of like, how do I do this particular service and how do I create this particular business? So, long story, that's how I got there.
No, thank you so much for sharing because I was listening like, dang, you did so much before getting into podcasting. Like, I didn't know that you were a office manager for this wedding company, and then that led you to VA work. And it reminds me of someone in Vegas right now that does a lot of social media work for locals around town, and they will like go and take videos and do things like that and post for them. And I'm like, wow, that sounds just like kind of what you did when you started doing that. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And then you like transitioned to online. And it's cool that you had that one client already and was like, hey, can you help with the podcasting thing? And so it's cool you got your feet wet in that aspect because it kind of seems like whatever job led to you to do that kind of just it felt like it was the invisible string theory, like in the Taylor Swift song, but it's like with jobs.
Yeah.
And so that's what I felt like with how you got into podcasting and how it kind of flowed seamlessly for you and how you kind of realized I'm like, oh yeah, I like this. I just need to know the know-how. I need to know how to get more like into it, like figure out the SOPs, and just kind of figure all of that stuff out.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that's like, I love being able to kind of tell the story because it helps me to see it. Like I said, in hindsight, sometimes I need someone to kind of turn me around and show me my own story. Because even telling you, I was like, whoa, that was a lot. But yeah, I love the way it kind of all played out and worked out together. Because literally that whole, you know, Melissa retiring and me trying to figure out what I was going to do, I really had no idea what I was going to do. And I didn't want to do social media management or Facebook ads management anymore. But then it was like, hello, you've been managing her podcast for quite a while. Like, let's do podcast management. Yeah. And then I've been doing I'm technically still doing it. So I've been doing podcast management ever since, what'd you say, 2020? Yeah, around that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, and what I love about Melissa is how she came to you and she was someone that you looked up to and admired and like followed her along with her and you didn't even think like in a million years that she'd be like, "Hey, do you want to work with me?" Like there's a couple of people like that I know now that I follow and it's like if they ever see me, I'd be like, "Oh my God, like that would be incredible." I How did she find you? Was it through word of mouth or was it through like she saw what you're doing and posting? Because when we're talking about having your own business, like, did you find people to work with through personal referrals? How did that come to be?
Honestly, when I say that I became really good at social media management, that was really what was happening. I focused a lot on Instagram. That was my favorite platform. And for my pages, I optimized the hell out of my pages. So she found me because she was searching for like social media manager and I popped up. And I'm like, wow, okay, it's working. But like I said, once again, it's the work that I was doing, and once again, sometimes you just need someone to show it to you. So yeah, that's literally what happened. She was like, I was searching and I found you, and we even had to go through this conversation of like, are you real? Because I don't believe this is happening right now. Like but I've had that happen probably more times than once. I ended up getting a lot of clients. Started off originally like word of mouth because of the business that I was in and working with all of these people from the wedding world. And then it became finding people, not finding people, but people finding me through my Instagram. So a lot of my clients came through me through one of those, you know, avenues. And I will honestly say that I just feel like really, really blessed and kind of privileged that that happened because it made the whole finding like aligned clients thing like so much easier. Like I didn't have to be out here fighting and struggling and like thinking that like I'm never going to find a client because that's one of the other things that happens when you're an entrepreneur. You're like, nobody wants this. They do they want it and they want you. Yeah, I think long story short, that was literally how she found me. And I ended up working with another coach, Sharon Eskandani. We've actually talked about this a while. Sharon Eskandani is the coach of Wholehearted Coaching, and I've worked with Sharon for a long time. I have no idea how long. But she actually, I think, found me and I found her. And I think what was funny is that I was following her for her content and she was following me for the work that I was doing, but we didn't know it. And then until eventually she reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I see you're a VA. I need a VA." And I was so excited to work with her. But then I was honest with her. I said, "You know what? This is awesome, but I'm no longer a VA. Like, I'm a social media manager or whatever, Facebook ads manager." And she was like, "Oh, okay. I'm gonna reach back out to you in like a year. I'm gonna see where I am." And I was like, okay, okay. But at the same time, I was like, I really want to work with you. Let me just check your emails. What do you need? But I also had to honor myself and be like, I said I didn't want to go back to this work. I'm moving on. So it was hard, but it was awesome. And literally a year later, she reached back out to me and she was like, "Hi, are you still doing Facebook ads work?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am." So then I ended up working with her as her Facebook ads manager. And then that same thing also transitioned into podcast management because I told her at the time, I said, after we got started working together, I said, I'm not doing Facebook ads anymore. I'm transitioning out of it. I'm actually doing podcast management. She was like, you know what? I need a podcast manager. And I was like, okay, that worked. And then I ended up working with her. I think we stopped working together like this past February because she's taking a break. I've been working with her for years. I just talked to her yesterday. But, anyways, same story.
That is awesome. I love the fact that you were able to find your clients through you being you on like social media and doing what you're good at. Like one of the things that I struggle the most with is showing up on social media, posting. I don't have no idea what to post. I'm really bad at creating content, but it goes to show that like if you really put your whole soul into it and like being who you are, people see that. People resonate with that and they're like, yeah, like I like what you're doing. I like who you are. Your work is proving to itself. And it's like, I want to work with you. So I think that's really cool that you stay true to yourself. That kind of leads me into the next like thought process that I have is you are very good at being authentic with you and who you are. And your podcast, A Life Differently, is another take on being authentic. And so I want to talk with you too about after working with all these clients, what made you realize like, hey, I want to do a podcast about life and I want to do a podcast about showing up. How
Mhm.
did you come up with that? Because also too, you and I started working together with Bethany Hawkins at Crackers and Soup. Shout out, hello guys. Um, and so that's how we also started like talking more is through working with them together. I was their podcast like VA manager there, and you also did stuff with them too. When we were there, you were talking about having a podcast, and you're talking about having a podcast for like so many years. I'm like, Ronnie, where's your podcast? Like you were talking about this since we were working with Crackers and Soup. Where the hell is your podcast? And now you finally have one. And Bethany was a guest on your episode on your podcast, which was a great episode.
Thank you.
But yeah, of course. But yeah, I'm just like, what made you decide to finally take that leap? Because you were thinking about it for a long time, and then you're like, yeah, it's time. So there's so many questions in there, but
Yeah.
I think you understand where I'm, what I'm asking, and what I want to know.
Yeah, no, totally, totally. And once again, thank you for reminding me of that because I'm like, I didn't even realize like I had been talking to you about it so long. Um, so, what made me want to have a podcast? So, my podcast has actually been like years and years in the making, as you've experienced yourself, but even longer than that. It has gone through, it's just like a dream that's just gone through different iterations over time. And I think that what finally got me to actually release it and put it out into the world is just who I was at the time. I think that I had to be kind of different, a different person than I was like all those times back. Maybe I think before it was kind of like I was a dreamer. I was a dreamer with a dream, but I'm not gonna say I wasn't an action taker. I just think in some ways I just personally wasn't ready for it. And what I love is that the dream stayed with me all of those years. So I love how like the invisible thread for me is just like that's just my entire story. So I'll take you back a little bit and when I was younger, like my teenage years, absolutely loved magazines, right? Obsessed, obsessed. By the time I got to college, I was like, you know what? I want to work in magazines. I was thinking about doing that. My major was visual communications and journalism and all of that. So I basically had like all of the things I needed to kind of go that route if I wanted to. But also to be realistic, I wasn't in a point in my life where I had a lot of examples of someone like me doing that kind of thing. So it was a dream, but it also felt very unrealistic. It just felt like a dream. And it's kind of hard to tell people to just go after a dream when they have like no examples that it's like actually real. And especially being a person of color, like it makes it even harder because you're like, yeah, sure, I read magazines and I see editors in chief, but they don't look like me. This don't feel real, you know? So I think that's another thing that kind of contributed to this being a dream that was so long in the making. So when I was in college, I actually had this idea to create a magazine that focused on women of different races, cultures, and background. That was literally what I wanted to do. And I remember I got so gung ho about that idea. I was like, I'm going to do it. I don't know when, but I'm going to do it. And honestly, sometime that dream kind of like faded away. Not because like I didn't think it was possible, but because, the digital age and printed magazine realistically was kind of like dying anyway. So you're like, why am I going to create a magazine when, the internet's booming? So I think it kind of like faded away.
Yes, I do remember you talking about having a podcast that was like a magazine podcast. I
Yeah.
remember you talking about that, and they were like, "Yeah, that sounds really cool. Like, how is it going to work out? Like, how are you going to do this?" And I'm like thinking, like, how would a magazine podcast like be a thing? So, but
Yeah.
I thought it was cool, and also too, like, if you, I just thought about this too because you're saying like you had a dream of doing this, and you didn't see anyone that looked like you doing it, and you were like, "Does it seem achievable?" But the thing is,
Mhm.
it's like if you're thinking those things, you could be the trailblazer, you could be the innovator of that. And
Absolutely.
so the fact that you're like really passionate about doing something like that from the very beginning just says so much about you and who you are, and that you're like, yes, like even though this is like scary, like I'm nervous about it, I still want to show up, and I still want to show people like this is me, this is who I am, and that there are other people like me, and I want to show and I want to highlight these people too. So yeah, that's just what I was thinking too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, that's also part of, this journey and it's in and of itself was that. So that's also like another part of the journey in and of itself is that I had to get to a point. Yeah, I had to get to a point where I had to accept that maybe I was the person who was going to have to like make this trail or make this path, even if I didn't see it. And the other thing, too, like I mentioned, human design. So, human design, I don't ever really know how to actually explain it, but I love it. I did an interview with someone on my podcast about it. It's amazing. It's kind of like your birth chart, but like on steroids. And it's just like this really amazing thing. It combines all of these different, I'm just going to say modalities to it, like I Ching and blah, 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 blah. Listen to the episode if you want to. It's not me. But what it really helped me do was to just not only just see myself more clearly, but to like really understand and accept myself more. And a lot of what it would tell me is that you're not here to follow a path, you're here to create a new path. And I would be like, fuck you, human design. I need examples. Um,
But I mean, at the same time, even if you don't have examples, you could be the example for the examples.
exactly. But like for me, it was hard because I was like, I need to see.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like you can't break the rules if you don't know what the rules are. And I was like,
Yeah.
I can't be an example if I don't have an example to kind of like piggyback off of, like that's kind of how,
Right.
but I had to get to that point, and like
Mhm.
even talking to you, I think I was getting there because if I talked to you about my magazine style podcast and it was like, what is that going to look like? I don't know, but it's there. Like, we're going to figure this out. So I know that like eventually, I think around the time when I was talking to you, my podcast idea was called See Yourself. I remember it. I still remember the podcast cover. I made a podcast cover. It was gonna happen. It did not happen. But
Yes, I do remember that too, because I was like, okay, where is it? Like you had it all like set up, and it's like,
I
hello.
had guests lined up to be on the show. I was like, I don't know honestly what happened. Like I said, I think I just wasn't ready. And on top of that, sometimes like our fear and our own criticism, like for me, recovering perfectionist, and one of the things that I've had to learn about my mindset, my limiting beliefs, is that I was really brought up to believe that I was both too much and not enough. And when I realized that, I was like, well, damn, like, what do you do? Because that's a very thin line. Like, how are you too much and not enough? Like, how am I going to create anything if I keep moving through life with this belief? So it's something that I'm not going to tell you like I've healed from, I've overcome. I'm more aware of it now. So I'm able to actually work on it and use that awareness to actually take steps and move forward. As you can see, obviously the podcast is out there. I don't believe the podcast is too much. I don't believe it's not enough. I love it. Like it makes me so happy to do it. And I get one person responds to me and tells me like this episode was amazing and I'm like this is worth it. Like this is worth it in so many ways. So one other thing I will share with you, you could look it up if you want. Before it was See Yourself, it was called Ditch the BS. I was so excited about that.
That's really cute. I do like that.
Thank you. It was so cute. Like I was so excited about my little logo. I don't know what I used to make it because Canva wasn't a thing then. This had to be around college years. But that was like the original name. So it was Ditch to BS. And then Ditch to BS was more about that aspect of ditching the status quo and like all of the stories, the shoulds, the supposed tos, and then see yourself was really focusing so much more on like representation. So honestly, like I said, the dream's always been there. It's just kind of like shifted, and now you have a life differently. So there's a couple of other things that really contributed to a life differently actually coming to together. Like I said, the person that I am now, the person that I was when I created it, completely different person. I've grown, I've done a lot of like mindset work, limiting belief work. I also went through a very transformational program, the Wholehearted Life Coaching Certification, which is where I got my coaching certification. Even if I never became a coach, just my personal transformation from that program was worth it because my life just completely looked different. I'm not going to say I'm out here on like $1 million yachts, not like that, but literally, like, it helped me so much with my mindset, my beliefs, what I thought was expected of me, so much of that. And it helped me to actually start to take steps towards the things that I really wanted in life and the life that I actually wanted to experience. Another thing is that, I've gone through some really heavy loss and grief in my life. In 2020, I lost my Nana. My Nana's one of the most important people to me in my life. And that entire journey to like her passing was just extremely devastating for me. So that already kind of like lit a fire under me. It was like, it really was just kind of like, fuck it. Just go for it. Just live your life. That's literally kind of what I felt afterwards. And then in 2023, my brother died. And that, I thought my Nana was the most devastating loss. My brother dying was, it's unexpected. You expect your grandma to pass away. Like, you expect it, even if it's extremely hard, but you don't expect your brother to just pass away. So,
I
like,
do remember when that happened, and I'm so sorry for your loss with your brother and your Nana.
thank you. I really
Yeah, of
appreciate that. Yeah.
course.
And, it's like for him, that's still like very new for me, like, and there's
Yeah,
just like a lot. And grief is just, whew, you hear it all the time. Like, there's literally no like one way that grief looks. And I can say like my grief towards my Nana is completely different than my grief towards my brother. But
right.
the very similar thing is that both of them really, I mean, death kind of like shows you that like life isn't here forever, life is kind of fleeting. And it's like, it really both just really lit a fire under me to just live my life, and actually, my gosh, every once in a while I forget, but I'm going to look for it. Hold on. I have a text from my brother that just like, gosh, breaks my heart, but I kept it. And it always, I don't know how to describe it. I think that kind of just like really kind of contributed to that fire under my butt. Let me see. Let's see. He said, just keep trying to live your life the best ways you can. I think that's our purpose, to have as much fun and enjoy life as much as we can before we go. And I was like,
When did he send that? Because that's
he
really
said that like this
powerful.
was like well before he passed. This wasn't like a, like right before. It was
Okay.
just like I was sitting in my phone, and I was just, I was scrolling through his messages and just reading our conversations, and I saw that one and I was like, wow. I was like, okay, okay.
Yeah. Glad you
So
kept that because that's a really powerful message that he shared with
yeah,
you. Yeah.
yeah. So honestly, that kind of loss for me is also what, really propelled like this podcast to come out, like me to do my coaching certification and me to travel. Like, I think if you saw me last year, I was traveling a lot. But I just came back from a trip. So, like, all of those things, it was just like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to live. I'm going to go for it. Because, for me personally, but also with the show and with the coaching that I do, I always have this, I always have this deep belief that I don't feel like we're here to live life like the way we're told we have to or we're supposed to. I'm like, there's like 8 billion, I don't know how many people there are in the world now, but I'm like, there's like billions of people in the world now. There's no way we're all meant to be here to do things one way. And I think that if you yourself have like this calling inside of you, or something just doesn't sit right with you, or you desire something different, there's a reason that it's there. And I think with all of these things, like my goal is really to just kind of help you to break through the noise, break through all of the layers. I always talk about layers. I'm always talking about layers and conditionings and cycles and da 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 da. But to just kind of like break down to who you really are at your core, and just kind of like know that your desires are there for a reason, and that this life you dream of experiencing or wanting, like, it's there for a reason and it's possible, even if you don't see examples of it yet. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, no, thank you so much. I think it's really important to see, like, yes, there's so many billions of people out in the world, but there's only one you. And it's
Yeah.
hard sometimes to see all these people doing things that you want to do and you want to achieve and be there and all of that. And it's just trying to, like, get through the noise, get through the barrier. And that's the hardest part, is to, like, get through that imposter syndrome. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? Get through that, like, that feeling of, oh, I'm not good enough, or oh, I'm not this, I'm not that. And like you said too, like, there's a whole lot of life to live, and it's like, you're here to, like, for a reason. You're here to, like, shine. So why not shine?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I think you have such a beautiful way of like wrapping things up. I love that.
Thank
I'm
you.
admiring that about you.
Thank you so much. I think it's so growing up, I have a processing disorder called auditory processing disability. And so whenever I talk to someone, I always have to try and relay what I hear back. So it's like, I believe this is what you're saying. Let me see if this is how I am interpreting it correctly. And this is like what and this is my feelings with what you're saying too, because it takes a little bit longer for me to process things and for me to
Hmm.
really, like, truly understand what someone is saying. And it's just something I've been doing after realizing that I've had this thing, because it's like, I want to make sure I hear you correctly. I want to make sure that I'm understanding you correctly and what you're saying. So thank you for pointing that out. I really appreciate that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not pushing you in that direction, but that's literally what coaches do. And I'm just like, I'm like, I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't usually work with coaches too much. I've thought about it here and there. I do go to therapy, and that's been the most coaching kind of that I've had.
Yes. Shout out
Um,
therapy.
yeah, but for real, like, it's definitely a interesting way to have someone tell you, like, "Hey, like, this is, what I see from you," and, like, taking that, I'm like, "Oh, thank you." Like, that's like, I didn't even know that about myself. And is
Yeah.
that kind of like what you do with your coaching as well too? Because you have the podcast A Life Differently, and you've gone through the road of how you got there. So, like, how did you get to the coaching aspect of it now too? Because your podcast is kind of part of your coaching program. Is that correct? Is that kind of how it goes, or is it like two separate things?
Yeah. So it's kind of two separate things, but it's simultaneously the same thing. It's the same thing in the sense of like a life differently is also the name of my coaching. And the podcast is, it's so funny because the podcast is, I don't even know how many episodes in. 13. It's 13 episodes and it's already like kind of like transforming. But it's more of a way, an expression of all of the different beliefs and things that I want to explore. But it also is going to correlate with the coaching as well. So, with the coaching, how I got into it, how did I get into coaching? Interesting question. So, with my coaching, actually, what happened was that it was actually very unexpected. I did not, intend to be a coach. And actually, what my mentor, Sherette, often says is she says a lot of life coaches don't intend to be life coaches. You end up becoming one. But she does teach a lot from this decolonized perspective, which I absolutely love and adore. But, a lot of us, historically speaking, especially like our ancestors, a lot of us have coaches in our lineage. A lot of us are coaches. We just called coaches. We are like, you have like the wise old grandma, that everybody goes and talks to. You have like your oracle, it's all these different things, but it's always existed and it's the same modality, just kind of different words. So I am deeply intuitive. I am an empath, and I've always just been, I think other people say I'm a great listener. Sometimes I don't feel like I am. And I'm going to be honest with you. But that right there, I've always been the person that people come to and talk to about whatever. I'm the person that random people in the store will tell me their life story, and I'll just be like, cool, like, I'm just like listening. Like, and that right there, when I started to realize that, I actually remember like a few years ago, I was joking with my friend, and I was just like, I was saying something to her. I don't remember what, but I remember at the end, I was like, maybe I should just be a life coach. And I remember we were just laughing and laughing about it. And look at me right now. But, I at the
The
time,
invisible string theory.
always, always. So I have always worked with coaches. Moving out of the wedding professionals, a lot of the people I work with were coaches. I work with one of my first social media clients was a motherhood coach. Melissa Griffin was a coach. She was a business coach, and then she became a mindset coach. Sharon Eskandani, just coaches, coaches. I even work with people, a couple that was like they were sex coaches. Always work with coaches. So the interest was always there, and I've always been super into like personal development, understanding myself deeply. I want to understand everything. I ask questions about everything. And the other thing too is that I think you've clearly pointed out where the invisible string theory is in my life. I'm always looking and trying to figure out where it exists everywhere else. I'm always trying to look for the patterns and understand things. So diving deep into like all of this, I listened to all these podcasts. I was really obsessed with the Manifestation Babe podcast, Catherine Zankina. So loved her podcast. And I even went through her Manifestation Babe program, which is really,
I
really
remember
awesome.
that. Yeah.
Really, really awesome. And I was like, I want to teach this. I was like, I want to teach this. But there was something about it that just felt kind of icky. Like, not like saying she's icky. It's just there's something there. It's kind of like this quiet invisible thing that I can't put my finger on. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to do her program. I don't know exactly what's going to come of it, right? And this wasn't to like, the program isn't to teach manifestation, it's to like transform your life, to manifest in your life. And then when I decided to join her program, that's when my client Sharon announced that she was doing her own life coaching certification program. And I was like, oh, look at timing. Look at the universe, right? So then I looked into hers, and it's heart centered, trauma informed, decolonized, and it really focused a lot on not really like shitting on the coaching industry, but pulling out all of the toxic positivity aspects of it and the things that really kind of ignore the actual real life struggles and mindset blocks of marginalized people. And I was like, whoa, that's what's missing. That was the part that was missing that I could not name. And that's one of the things like I kind of say like it's like a real life struggle of people of color, people of the global majority is that, there are these things that we're just used to and we're accustomed to that they aren't right for us, but we don't know because we don't have the words for it. So when she released her program, I was like, it's what it is. And ultimately, I was like, I'm going to combine everything I learned in this manifestation program, everything I learned in this coaching program. And I'm going to see what comes of it because my dream at the time, I wanted to be one of those big name manifestation coaches, not just to be like on my $1 million yacht, as we mentioned again, but I was like, I want to see more people like us in these spaces. I love these people. Like I think Catherine Zakina is a really amazing person who works really hard to be very open-minded and well-informed. I trust her work. But simultaneously, it's not lost on me that big name coaches are like Tony Robbins and Mel Robbins. I'm just like all these people who they're not like us. And realistically, I can speak for myself. But you don't feel like you're a part of this world. You don't feel like that kind of thing is realistic for you and available for you. Even if I see a shit ton of people doing it, honestly, it's a lot of white people. And I don't feel like I belong there. So it was this thing where I was like, I want to be this representation that maybe is going to help someone else feel like this is actually possible for them. And also, I want to figure out the bridge. Like, what is the gap that is keeping us from being there? Like, what is keeping us? If manifestation is this thing that's really open to all of us, which I believe it really is, what really is stopping us from exploring it more and benefiting from it more like we see all of these other people? So that was another think that was really like a big motivator for me in
Yeah.
becoming a coach.
Everyone should experience that. Everyone should have access to it. It's there for a reason. Like manifestation is a big
Absolutely.
thing that anyone can do. And it's interesting that you pointed that out, that you feel like there's not too many manifestation coaches that are people like you, marginalized and of color. And when you're saying that, I'm noticing that too. I'm like, there's really not that
Yeah.
many.
I'm
Like,
like, name
I
three.
don't understand. Yeah, I'm like, I don't understand that. Like, why? Like, what is it? Like, are people afraid to like show up as themselves and show up like, hey, like you could do this, I could do this too. Like, I don't
Yeah.
like, it's interesting that you're trying to find that bridge and kind of go over the bridge. And it's another way too for you being innovative and for you being like one of the first few people to be in that space and to shine and show who you are in that light, which I think is really inspiring and powerful. And it's such a big message too, that it's like, if you don't see someone like you doing it, then you do it. And I was just thinking too, it's like, I was thinking of like little Ronnie, and I'm like little Ronnie would be so like surprised to seeing like what big Ronnie is doing right now. And it's like, wow, like you're someone that your little self would look up to, kind of thing. If
Thank
that makes
you.
sense.
No, it does
Yeah.
make sense, and I love that. It just made my heart like flutter. But you're
Oh,
absolutely
yeah,
right.
no.
Like you're absolutely right. Because little Ronnie is definitely she's a big dreamer. She is a big dreamer. She'd be like little Ronnie grew up on a dirt road in the country, okay? Like she'd be like, ain't no way we're doing all of this. Yes, we are.
Yeah. And I think it's so important that you're showing your like inner child. Like this, like times are changing and I'm being part of that change and I'm being part of that growth with the human world. So I think that's really inspiring and very, and something that everyone should keep an open mind to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's have all these different people do follow these same kind of paths, but make it their own kind of thing.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for reflecting that back to me.
Of course. And thank you again so much for coming on here and for sharing like your journey through a life differently and through your podcast and your coaching business. I've learned so much from you as well and about you that I'm like, I'm really happy we got to sit down and talk about this. And it's like, I understand your mission a little bit more. And it just makes me so excited and so ready to see like the next process and the steps of your coaching business and things like that. So I really appreciate you coming on. And I do have one last question. We had some technical difficulties with the previous app that we were using, and we hopped onto another one to finish this interview here. So if you're watching the video, it looks a little bit different when you're wondering what the heck is happening. That's why. Anyway, so Ronnie,
Yes.
my last question for you is, what would you tell yourself when you were just starting out to do this coaching and podcasting company, that it is doable, but you just didn't know it yet? What would that advice be for the version of you that's like, I have no idea what's going on?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good question. I feel like first and foremost, I would probably just hug that version of myself. Yeah, I'd give her a hug. I feel like I see myself hugging her and holding her face and being like, you got this. All right, you got this. Like, you can do this. It's possible because you're dreaming of it. If you're dreaming it, it's possible. It's possible and it's going to exist in some iteration. It's okay if it doesn't look exactly like what you dream about. Focus on the parts that are lighting you up. What's lighting you up about it? Like what are the feelings you get? Focus on that because that's the part that's gonna translate, come to fruition. The I believe that the universe has so much more, in store for us, so much more that's possible for us than we could ever imagine. And we might get really, really latched onto something looking a certain way so we can control the outcome and control how it feels. But if we can just honor how that thing is making us feel and run with that and allow it to come to life however it is going to come to life, it is going to give us more freedom to actually enjoy it and to actually be in it so that we can enjoy it in each and every moment of each and every day and not just when we get to some imaginary there or end result situation like the one you might be picturing. And I think just kind of like opening yourself up to like that possibility. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking because of my face. I'm in my head. I'm like holding my face. And I'm probably like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, but okay.
Thank you so much again for that advice and for coming on the podcast and for sharing your story and for like who you were back then to who you are now and seeing that invisible string and that like yes, like these things in your life are meant to happen for you. You just got to see what led you to it. So thank you so much again for sharing your light, sharing who you are, and for sharing your podcast with us today. So I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much too. Thank you for having me, for the questions that you asked, for allowing me to kind of take a step back and identifying my invisible thread for me and just reflecting a lot back to me. I think for me, I know the kind of person I am. It's people like you that I need in my life, which explains why we've known each other for like the past 5 years. But I think that that's one of the things like I love about you and I admire about you. And it's one of your amazing gifts. So I'm so proud of you for bringing your show back out and allowing it to
Thank
be like a
you.
true, authentic expression of you because nobody can do you like you do you.
No. Thank you so much for that too. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you all enjoyed the conversation. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to rate, send us a comment, and share the podcast. If you're interested in coming on the show as a guest, send me a DM over at Jules Unscripted Pod on Instagram. Tune in next week for more episodes with Jules Unscripted. Bye!